Hello and welcome to 51st News. I am your host, Sergeant Hackett. Um, Welcome. So for tonight's headlines, we've got the Orcs mod. We're going to be interviewing Cassius, who is one of the lead developers of our Orcs mod. We're going to be talking with Blaze about his experience leading the unit, some of the squad changes and plans for the future. And we've got an interview with Tankboy, who previously was the Sergeant of Sabre 3. Now, join us tonight as we explore these topics and more on 51st News. Okay, welcome Clone Sergeant Tankboy. How are you doing today?
Doing outstanding, Hackett. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you. So let's get into the news, shall we? Okay, I've just got a couple of questions for you.
Alright.
So Sabre 3 has been going under a lot of changes. What has been the biggest change and why does it matter so much?
I guess the biggest change, more or less, would be squad organization. Saber 3 has always had the issue of people not more or less sticking around. So finding those constant troopers that can fill those vital roles to allow for two fire teams is been the biggest issue. Um, and I'm hoping that in the future we can try to find a larger pool of people that are willing to stick around and help with that change, because that would be very beneficial for us.
I see, I see. So where have these influx of numbers come from? Are they like reservists, transfers from squads, or what's going on
Uh,
with that?
Recently, we did have a influx of new recruits, along with the addition of allowing cadets who have not gone through BCT to join the ranks, to allow them to actually get to experience the unit beforehand. So that pool has helped grow the numbers significantly and allow for a larger audience to attend ops.
I see, that sounds quite interesting. Would you say that's been a good thing so far?
I would say it's good because it gets newer people a chance to actually interact with people in their squad and their unit, and to see if this is something that they enjoy doing. Rather than spending all the time going through BCT, and then if they end up not liking it, then they leave. But this allows them to get more involved early on and just be more welcomed into the unit as a whole.
Fair one, thank you for that. So, on to the next question. How has the unit changed in your time? What has improved and what changes would you like to see happen?
Um, Ever since I've been in, the main issue has just been attendance, right? Ops are usually about 40 people. The unit as a whole has about 180, 190 people now. Um, I would say the biggest change that I would like to see is an increase in recruitment, mainly just numbers. Um, because once again, the biggest issue that I've noticed, at least in Saber 3, is a lot of people do tend to branch off into specialized units. So you do not always have that constant number of people in a squad at any given time.
Yeah, okay. So going into the more specialized roles now, that's quite new. That's come in within the last few months, if I'm correct. How would you say that's had as a general effect, or not just Saber 3, but as the unit as a whole?
Overall, for things like ARC or ARF, I always get the two confused, more or less. But I do like the addition of them integrated into the squads. It allows for an additional insight for people that have maybe been in the unit for a lot longer. And I guess putting it into example for real world scenarios, they would be the equivalent of a sergeant major and a first lieutenant. They would help the new command staff, guide them through anything that they need, and help them sort out situations that arise. So
Fair
overall, I
one.
do like that addition. into squad elements as a whole.
Very cool. Um, so you've served as the sergeant of Saber 3 for some time now. Do you have a favorite moment?
Um, I don't necessarily have a favorite moment. Typically, how I view my role as a sergeant is just to kind of help welcome new cadets into the unit as a whole, and help people within Saber 3 branch off to find their place in the unit, if that is their end goal. Um, but I would not think that I have a favorite moment over my entire time being a sergeant. Um, if I had anything that would be noteworthy, it would be my time helping troopers in Saber 3 find what they enjoy doing.
Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So would you say that you view Saber 3 as more of a stepping stone onto larger and greater things?
I do believe that obviously the bare bones infantry make up the brunt of any assaulting force, especially in the unit. Um, but from the entire time of me being sergeant, once again, Saber 3 has always had that issues more or less of attendance and numbers. Mainly because a lot of good people who enter the squad typically like to leave to go do their own specialized units, which I, in the end, encourage. I do not want someone to feel like they are stuck in the squad, and if they feel as though they would be better somewhere else, such as Gamma Squad, where they're sniping, or if they want to be involved with tankers or aircraft, that is a then decision to make, and I would like to help them in any way possible to go do what they feel they like doing within the unit.
That's quite nice of you. Um, and yeah, that's quite an interesting take, to be honest. So in regards to that and specialized units, obviously Reaper has converted into a Saber squad, into Saber 4. Now in regards to specialized units, what kind of impact can you see that having?
As mentioned, you have Arc that is now embedded into regular Saber elements, allowing for an additional manpower, additional insight, and just ways to help with communication. Um, Other specialized units are also important because they help in terms of reconnaissance, counter assaults, and then you have vehicle squadrons such as tankers and pilots who do help us in those aspects as well. Pilots, especially considering we use LATs for pretty much every single operation, and they're a vital part in how we transport, resupply, reinsert, and yeah, both a lot of the support squads do a lot for the unit that I do feel some people might overlook if they weren't paying close attention.
So all in all, these specialized units bring a lot to the general gameplay. Like everything plays well together, and there's nothing you would change personally.
No, nothing I would change personally. I Yeah, I think everyone does have their designated roles at this time, and from what I've seen in ops, it tends to work out really well together.
Okay, cool. Thank you for that. So now on to the next couple questions. Now don't worry, these are going to be some of the final ones. I'd like to just ask you, what has Saber 3 got in store for the future? Anything exciting?
I do feel as though Saber 3 does have a lot of potential to grow. I would like to integrate some things regarding to trainings either before or after ops. Um, Mainly because there isn't a set training schedule. And once again, with the recent influx of newer players, a lot of them don't have as much combat experience as, say, older players. So that could potentially allow for heightened security in the group, and then heightened combat abilities when we actually do operations, and just overall better performance and more time enjoying together.
So would I be wrong to say that ideally we should be training the new recruits more in their basic training rather than giving it to the squads, or do you find that it
I
works
will,
quite well that way?
I will say BCT is a good introduction. Um, One aspect, because my BCT was so long ago, so I don't know if it has changed at all, but one aspect that I would like to see involved more, especially in terms of training, is um, use of lats. Once again, because they are used in every single operation. And what I noticed during our operations is that anytime we disembark a lat, it always tends to be a clustered mess of multiple squads having overlapping sections of fire, and then an entire direction is just not even covered. Things like that nature. Um, that would be the biggest thing I think could be improved for trainings as a whole if they were implemented. But then you would possibly run into the issue of attendance once again. Like, trainings can be optional, but then not a lot of people might show up, and then they might feel pressured if it is something that ends up being mandatory.
I can totally see your point there. So obviously, with the LAATs, disembarking is so crucial to the mission's success because that moment where you're getting out the lat, it can either be a mass cass or it can be a great assault, and it's really a matter of discipline and awareness that gets you to that point between success and failure. So yeah, that's a really good point there. So just as a final question now, what are your plans for the future?
Um, that's still something I'm debating. I think behind Lucifer, I am the second longest running sergeant within the unit. I could be wrong about that. Overall, so far I have really enjoyed my time as sergeant for a saber element. It is quite an honor considering there are only three main infantry sections within the unit as a whole. Um, but at this point in time, my goal is to continue to help other cadets in Saber 3 branch out and find where they fit in within the unit.
That's really nice of you. Well, thank you very much, Tankboy. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Now, on to the next segment. Thank you very much for that, Tankboy. Those were some interesting points. Now, in other news, the Chancellor has declared that the budget for the GAR shall be rising a grand 50% to counter the threat from the Confederacy of Independent Systems, following his emergency measures at the outbreak of the war, which saw the introduction of the GAR. We now have more funding. So what does that mean for us clones? Well, potentially it will see new weapons platforms come in. We'll see more units deployed to the battlefield and much more. So stay tuned for that. We shall surely experience it all. Now, on the Galactic front, we're seeing quite a few victories, not too many defeats, if any defeats at all. The GAR remains strong. We'll be back to you after this ad break.
Try the all-new Diet Water, 0 calories. Now in every store near you. Diet Water.
Okay. Hello, Blaze, and welcome to the interview. I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions just about the general being of the unit and some of your opinions on it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I've not got too many questions because we don't want this to go on for too long. But to start it off, I want to ask you about this new Alderaan campaign. So obviously, it's got a lot of new features. So I just want to start off by asking you what kind of features there are, which one's your favorite and why, and what kind of things does it bring to the gameplay?
Yeah, for sure. The new Alderaan campaign has been the first time I've really delved into heavy scripting in my ops. I think in the past I had a lot of fear of server performance and just a lack of understanding. So this is the first time I've really, gone out of my way to have a very immersive scripted environment, and that's brought a lot of really cool new features. I think one of my favorite one is definitely the global hint, where you see a little hologram guy giving you information as you move along. Because the idea behind that was that whenever I was trying to give exposition or context, I'd usually just be communicating with the platoon leader and maybe a sergeant or two, but the general player base would not really get direct information as to what the narrative of an op is. So with that new feature, then I'm able to kind of directly signpost to the players exactly what the story going on is all about. And this whole campaign is very narrative based. So it's really important that I can kind of find a way to directly communicate my ideas of the story to each player as they play the mission. I'm also really happy with the NPC dialogue script. It's something we tested out in a side op and is going to be featuring in a couple of the main ops as well. That's another thing that's added a lot of immersion. And it's been really fun to make because I can create all these unique and interesting characters that are populating the op for the players to interact with. And then other than that, there's also just been sort of small quality of life things that I think just add an extra layer. So in the past, when players interacted with the console, they would just hold down the spacebar for 10 seconds or something. But now they have to select a code or do some other kind of mini game, which just adds that layer of detail and immersion that we were kind of missing before. And all of this means that there are so many features that add to the world building in each operation. And in none of these ops is there the whole sense of you're just given some arbitrary objective, you're going from point A to point B to point C. It's all about you kind of experiencing the world, getting immersed in it, and then everything that happens is kind of logically following on through that. And it's been a really fun campaign to make, and I think the players, so far the feedback has been good, but I'm sure they'll enjoy this different style of gameplay.
Certainly. So yeah, there's definitely been a lot of quality of life changes. I've had the honor of playing in a couple of the ops with some of these new systems at least, and even had the honor of Zeusing alongside you. And definitely from the start of this year that we've seen a lot of new changes that have just really brought a lot to this unit and has helped it to stand out even further from the rest of Starsim. So, just moving on now, what is your opinion on the new squad changes and what are the benefits and drawbacks? So, obviously, we've seen a lot of changes since the new year, such as Reaper Squad becoming Saber 4, the introduction to some changes with an arc, seeing 2 new classes of arc, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. So just stuff like that, some of the overhauls of how we run as a unit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always been a tough thing for Command to kind of grapple with being a Black Ops unit, but then being wildly successful and having 40, 50, 60 people coming to our operations, because it would be a lot easier to kind of fit our theme if we had a small number of players and we had these very small scale focus ops. But because we have so many people that want to do so many different things like players, tanks and mortars and pilots, and so on and so on, we have to kind of grapple with that and balance it out. So a lot of the changes that I've made is with the idea of trying to balance being a Spec Ops unit, a kind of covert unit, with the amount of players we have. And, these are things that have been changing over the entire time we've been here. We've had airborne troopers come and go. We've had mortar teams come and go, engineer teams come and go. And it's just kind of constantly adapting to make sure that there's something new for the players and it's not just 40 infantry out there, but giving them all something to do. With Reaper Squad recently switching to Saber 4, the logic behind that was we didn't want to have them on a separate platoon, a separate way, because their role is so integrated into the infantry, into the saber platoon. Whether they're in tanks, they need to be behind the players to be protected from AT. Whether they're, using artillery, they're getting the calls in from the sergeants, the platoon leaders on the ground. And it made sense in my mind to kind of group them all together. But it also changes the way we think about how our platoons are organized. So we were always sort of chasing having a saber fort, having a bash platoon and all that. But now that we have 3 strong squads of infantry with a attached support squad who can do anything they need, not just tanks and artillery, but also driving vehicles or manning turrets or these other kind of random little jobs that would be used to support the infantry. That's all in Saber now, and Saber's done, so we don't need to worry about trying to refill and open new squads. That's it. So we can switch the focus of new squads to things that the players really want, like new specialized detachments. And a big part of the other changes we've made, some of the smaller stuff, is about getting those squads to have a real sense of community. So recently we've had this amazing phenomenon where the squads that we have are really close-knit. They're led by amazing sergeants. They have really strong corporals and lance corporals. And the players in those squads are closer now, I think, than any of the kind of iterations before them. They spend a lot more time hanging out. They talk a lot more in the chats. And this was a very active thing that I pushed for the sergeants and the COs to focus on a couple of months ago, because I saw that there wasn't that much cohesion. But that's been wildly successful, and some of the changes, like introducing new squad nicknames, squad logos, that kind of stuff, is also to bring that sense of community and feeling of this little squad is your family. These are your guys in the unit, and that also shows itself in just having your little squad logo next to your name when you're typing in main comms or something. You can see who else is there from your squad, from different squads, and it's just kind of getting a sense of purpose and belonging in the unit, and I think it's really important for retention. Which is what we're after.
Certainly. So thank you very much for that. That was very insightful, and it brought a lot of, I think, some of what we've been asking ourselves as some of the regulars in the unit. Just, these are changes. We understand partly why they're there. And obviously you guys in command have done a good job of describing to us some of the reasons for it. But just tying it all together like that from you directly, I think answers a lot of what we've been asking ourselves, maybe in the background. So certainly thank you for that. So we've had a lot of new members join. So how does this tie into how we work as a unit, and what is the cause in your opinion?
So in terms of new members joining, the cause of that is just the hard work of our recruiters, I'd say. That's the kind of main driving force. We have guys who are going out there, sending lots of DMs, prowling through different servers, trying to get people to join. And in any version of the 51st that I've run, it's always active recruitment. That's been the best way to do things, because Starsim, whether it was on Battlefront 2 or on Arma, is such an oversaturated market. There are so many different units, which all offer broadly the same thing. So to kind of really get people to come along to yours, there's 2 things, and the first of them is active recruitment, going out and just trying to grab people. And just like kind of any sales job, you're just looking for people who are moderately interested in it and just bringing them in. And we have really talented recruiters who are great at doing that. But the other part of it, which has also contributed a large amount of new members, is word of mouth. Something great in the unit is that we have a real sense of developing friendships, really strong, close friendships. People meet here, they become good friends. They spend time gaming together. In some cases, they've just started dating each other. They've moved in with each other, things like this. So that sense of group and community in the 51st is super strong, and that means that people are very likely to recommend it to their friends. And we get so many people who come in who are friends of someone in the unit who've been brought in. And that's another really strong way of getting people, and those people tend to stay as well. The issue is when we recruit kind of randoms, it's a sort of hit or miss if they're actually going to be active, if they're going to kind of throw themselves into it. But when we get guys who are brought in by people recommending the unit, and who, when they join, they already know someone, they get put in a squad with their friends, they're much more likely to stick around. And another kind of way we've been dealing with this new influx of players is changing the way we've thought about our infantry squads. So there are kind of 2 main changes in that regard. Originally, we thought about having just 10 people in the infantry squad, as the law says. And once you get 10 guys in the squad, that's it, and then send them somewhere else, send them to a new squad. And that's the kind of mentality that allowed us to open Besh Platoon, because we just had 10 people in each squad. Once we got 40 in the platoon, we're done, we move on, we make another platoon. The issue with that was attendance was always going to be lower, because even if you have 10 people in the squad, you're not going to get 10 people at the ops. You're going to get 3, 4, 5, and if you're lucky, 6. So we'd always struggle with having high attendance, even though we had so many squads. And so instead, we decided to kind of compartmentalize it all into one platoon with Saber. And now Saber squads have up to 15, 16, 17 people in them, because we know that we need to have a lot more people in the squads themselves to actually get the numbers at the main op, which is ultimately what's more important. And the other kind of change we've done to accommodate that is quite a drastic change from the way we used to run things, which was getting cadets into squads as soon as they join. So this was sort of an idea I had just kind of off the whim, and we implemented it pretty quickly, but it was all about getting cadets to be in a squad as soon as they join, so that, again, they have that sense of community and group, because before they joined, they'd kind of be in the cadet comms, they wouldn't really know anybody, maybe they'd talk to a cadet trainer or two, but they weren't really integrated into the 51st as soon as they joined. But now once they join, they're still a cadet and they still have to do their BCT, but they go into a Saber squad so that they can start meeting people, they can start getting to know their COs, getting to play with the other guys in their squad, and just being part of that community. And that adds to the kind of numbers influx into Saber, such that when we get to the main up, we can start reliably getting 7, 8, 9, 10 people at the main ups. And in some squads, we've even seen more than 10 coming, which has been great. So that's how we're dealing with it. That's how we're trying to make sure that everyone is sort of properly allocated, and I think it's been working out well so far.
Certainly, we've definitely seen attendance skyrocket since the start of the new year. Maybe not not in like general, like we're seeing a lot more people at the ops, but we're seeing them more organized, certainly. And with these cadets joining the squads directly, rather than first going through basic training, which then isolates them, as you were saying, it brings a lot more to the unit, certainly, especially with activity. We're seeing a lot more people talk and share things in different channels. And just generally, it's been really good, and I'm excited to see where this goes for the future.
Absolutely.
So moving on again, just a couple more questions. Thank you for your patience.
No, of course.
So you've led this unit for quite a few years now. A few breaks here and there, but that's perfectly normal. I just want to ask about some of these challenges. What's brought them on, and how have you overcome them?
Of course, I think the main challenge of leading any unit is always devoting the time to it. Like any kind of startup organization, I strongly believe that the driving force is always the leader, the founder. If the leader has a good sense of what's going on, what they want to achieve, what vision they have, and they're putting in a lot of effort to get it done, everything else will fall into place. So for me, it's always been about maintaining that level of energy, that commitment to the unit, because I know that if I start to slack, then I can't expect any of the people who work in this organization to keep up doing the same work. And we have so many people who work so hard, whether it's the Orcs team, whether it's the COs. There's so much that goes on, and I think everyone needs to see that at the very top, I'm putting in the effort and I'm really showing my own dedication to the 51st, and everyone follows from that. So just as you said, I've taken breaks over time when I'm feeling low motivation, but it's just trying to always come back with new ideas, things that I'm interested in, because at the end of the day, it's kind of the same thing again and again. It's every Sunday it's an op, which is generally just clones versus the CIS. So trying to find ways to innovate, keep myself interested, keep the players interested, is something that a lot of units struggle with, but luckily I think I've been able to do a good job of keeping that energy going, and I plan to keep doing so. So yeah, maintaining the time commitment is a big thing. Otherwise, I think a lot of the challenges I used to have when it was kind of all on me has now been mitigated, because we sort of decentralize everything. We have different teams, different people working on stuff. The early days, it was just me, maybe a handful of the other high command sort of doing everything, which is obviously, necessary in a unit that's small and starting up, and that's a huge time commitment, huge money commitment as well. But now we have, supporters who can help out, we have COs who can help out, and again, just people doing stuff across the unit, which means I myself can focus on the things I really enjoy, which is just kind of coming up with new ideas and managing the unit as a whole, and then creating the ops. Because things like the disciplinary system, Justice can handle that. Things like the training, the core trainers can handle that, cadet trainers can handle that, etc. So as time gets on, it gets easier in that sense. But it all comes down to the hard work of everyone else. And a lot of people who kind of either leave the unit and come back or retire and unretire, they always say to me that the reason that they keep coming back to the 51st is because of how much effort everyone puts in. And as I said, I think that comes from me putting in so much. So I just need to maintain that. And if I'm doing that, then everything else falls into place.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And I think I speak for a lot of us when I say we see that you put a lot of effort into this unit, and especially the years that you've been here and you've built it from so little. Just really shows the quality of the unit as well, because obviously you've been innovating this entire time. So much so that it's become a main talking point for us here today. So yeah, if you can keep that up, that's brilliant. If not, so be it. But while we have you and while we have the 51st, it's definitely like a staple of Starsim, and I definitely believe that's the case for many of us.
That's great. I'm glad to hear.
So I just want to hear some of your opinions on custom armors and some of the new Orcs mod changes, because obviously we've had a massive overhaul of the Orcs mod in particular quite recently.
Of course. Yeah, so that stems from the decision we made a very long time ago to switch from the old LS models to, at that time, what would be the new LS models, but those never came out, so we decided to switch to IDA. And the decision to switch to IDA was partly because we were looking to change anything anyway, and there was no time frame on when Legion Studios would get their new models out. But also, I developed quite a good friendship with Cosmos, and he's one of the main developers there. So I thought, let's support my guy and use his stuff. So that's kind of where the foundation of the overhaul comes from, is needing to switch all of our armors over to IDA. Because of just a preference of the Legion Studios armors. They were too thin, they weren't really as proportional as we'd like them, and the new armors look much better in that sense. But also another huge issue was that our black was just too dark. It would suck all light out of the visuals when you were playing an operation on the old armors. So it was very important to us, and huge amounts of people have talked about it, of switching to a new kind of color, not color scheme, but just new colors that were much lighter, much more visible to the eye. Because in so many ops back then, when you'd be playing with the old armors, you just see a black silhouette, and it was very hard to make out any of the details that the texture artists had spent so much time creating. So we switched to a lighter color of black. And then another thing people talked about was wanting more leniency on a tertiary color, which is why we brought in the lighter gray accents. Just to make the armor pop a little bit more and give some more options. We played around with the ideas of having white and different colors and so on, but ultimately I'm very happy with the new color scheme that we've gone for. And in terms of the custom armors, we've also kind of made a conscious change to have it very Star Wars lore focused. So I personally have always been a fan of armors looking kind of like they would in a Star Wars universe. If it looks like something you could reasonably see in like some Disney Plus show or something, where people see that and actually believe, yeah, that's a clone trooper unit from Star Wars, that's what I want to achieve. So that's why we've said only Star Wars lore icons, kind of simpler-ish designs, especially with a lot of the squads, because we used to have some really weird and wacky designs on some of the armors. And another huge issue was actually that things weren't uniform at all. Different people had different types of weathering. They'd have different types of colors, even in some cases. It just wasn't kind of pretty to look at. So kind of overhauling it all means that we can establish a very uniform sense of weathering, a uniform sense of the colors and everything like that. So that was super important to me, especially just to get it all on the same page.
Fantastic. So gone are the days of maybe not seeing shadows, but seeing shadows run across the battlefield. And
Yeah, absolutely.
with these new armor models, they do look very clean and they're very cool. So IDA's done a fantastic job at that. Now these color schemes, especially, they really pop. Like
Mhm.
I'm not just saying that, I mean it. I'm in love with these new colors. It just makes
Absolutely.
everything so much more immersive, you know.
Mhm.
Okay, just last few questions here. I know we've been going on for a while. Um, so yes. So what are your plans for this unit's future? Looking forward, are we going to go towards Arma 4, some different games maybe? What kind of changes can you see being made to this unit in perhaps not the near future, but the future in general, whatever may come, also including merch?
Yeah, so originally I had some ideas maybe around a year or so ago to create the 51st into a broader sort of community gaming brand where we have our Battlefront server, we have our Armor server, and we branch into things like Squad and so on. But that never really happened because I always felt that we hadn't conquered Armor yet. We weren't at the position in this unit where everything was done, where we had the best attendance we could, the ops were as great as they could, and we'd finished Armor 3 Starsim, as it were. I think that's still the focus that I have, and as I talked about earlier, a lot of the changes I've done with the Old Run campaign is bringing us close to that, as well as the changes in terms of the squads, the mod. It's all getting us closer to a sense of completion where we're at a stable point, we've got everything done. Now obviously we're always going to be innovating, always going to be changing things as time goes on, but there is so much we still need to work on. I feel as a unit we're so far from where I see the vision of the 51st and Armor finally being, where that's the focus for now, and I don't really have immediate plans of moving out into any other games because, as I said earlier, it takes so much effort from that leader, whether it's me who's running it for Squad or for whatever other game it might be. It takes so much starting firepower to get it going, and at the moment I need all of that energy focused on Armor so that we can keep everything going. But in terms of the changes here, we've already started implementing a lot of them. The merch store, as you mentioned, is something really exciting I'm working on. I've been hiring artists to create really cool graphic designs so that we're not just a merch store where we have slap a logo on the chest and that's it, we're done. I'm getting really cool, unique designs, really putting a lot of effort with graphic styles like some of the squad armors or the squad hoodies and stuff like that. They'll have the names of the squad members in Orabesh going down the arms and in the back, as well as cool visuals of the squad armor itself. So I've put a lot of effort into making sure this merch store is actually a really strong, viable product, and it's something that you'd actually buy because it looks really good, not just because it has a 51st logo on it. And other than that, I think Arma 4 is something we're looking to, but the situation with Starsim and Arma is quite precarious because obviously a lot of what we do is under the radar of Disney. And with Arma 4's, with Arma Reforge's kind of inbuilt workshop where they don't use the Steam Workshop, which means that there's no Star Wars mods on it. It looks like it's going to be a bit weird with Arma 4 to try and get Star Wars mods into the game. I'm sure the mod developers and all the mod teams will manage it, but I'm not sure it will be on the same kind of accessible system as the Steam Workshop. So we'll look at it, we'll see how things go. It's very unlikely we're going to switch to Arma 4 immediately because there won't be enough content there to begin with anyway. We might run some Arma 4 ops just to begin with, but at least until there's a decent enough amount of content where we could reliably start making Arma 4 specific operations, we won't be switching to it right off the get-go. But hopefully in the future they can kind of figure it out, and whether it's downloading mobs from a Google Drive link or something, as long as there's a way to recruit people in and there's interest for it, then we'll switch over. Because obviously Arma does have a lot of issues, as everyone knows, but as a unit we do our best to work around them, and I think as time goes on we've gotten a lot better at it. So I'm no longer kind of in the situation where I think Arma 3 is just so unplayable, it's so impossible to get my visions of operations through. It is possible, you just need to have really smart, creative ways around it. And these are things that me and Cosmos, for instance, we've been talking about, all these kind of new innovative ways of creating performance-friendly, really crazy ops. So we're working on it, we're looking into it, and hopefully when we switch to Arma 4 in the future, we'll do it at a time where it's ready to be switched over to.
Wow, some really cool answers there. So yeah, cool. Obviously, we don't know what's happening with Arma 4 right now, but hopefully we'll get some clarity on that in the future. It's good to know that you guys in command and you yourself are thinking towards that future, whatever may come. And it's also really cool to hear you and Cosmos have that relationship. You're always adapting and improvising. So just to wrap things up now, what are your personal plans for the future? So I'm not talking like real life here because obviously you're your own person. We don't need to know that as a unit, as a community. But I mean more in terms of like Starsim and gaming. Do you have any plans you want to share with anyone?
I mean, for now, I'm still focused on just kind of managing the 51st, running at it. Cosmo said something funny to me the other day when I was kind of showing him one of the ops I had made and we were sort of testing it. He said that I was so good at level design and op creation, I should get a job as like a game designer, which was a very lovely compliment for him to say. But outside of Arma 3 as like kind of my hobby and my passion, I don't really have interest of going into the gaming industry or anything like that. Obviously, I'll play games with my friends and my girlfriend, that kind of thing. But a lot of my time does go into Arma, just creating the weekly ops, which is why, as time has gone on, I've done less and less of them. And a huge kind of thing in my mind, and that the rest of Command also agrees with, is the importance of training people to do your job. It's not good enough to just kind of me step aside and say to someone, okay, you go make the main op. We've got to make sure that we're teaching people how to do it so that they can do these jobs. And it's the same with core trainers, it's the same with cadet trainers, etc. It's always kind of passing knowledge down and training up new people to do it. And so that's why we've introduced the Zeus core tiers recently. This is all just so that we can have a standard of really high quality operations, whether it's me making them or whether it's anyone else. And then I can obviously keep focusing on the things I enjoy, as I said, managing and creating ops, because the ops I want to create take a really long time, and it's very hard to squeeze everything I want to do in a Sunday op in just that 1 week between the Sundays. I've kind of got to the point where I realize I need like at least a month, 2 months or so, just because I have so much other stuff going on in my life to actually dedicate the time to making the operations. But yeah, for now, I'll still be here. I'll still be around. I don't have any plans of retiring or anything. But when that day eventually comes, we have Clips, who is one of the most amazing people in kind of Milsim I've ever worked with. And he's been a fantastic 2IC. So when the time does eventually come for me to step down, I have 100% confidence that Clips can take over as a brilliant new leader of the 51st. But for now, I'm still here. I'm still doing what I can. And I have solid, strong plans for the future.
Amazing. So thank you so much for your time, Blaze. It's really been such an honor.
Of course.
Okay. Now on to our sponsor.
Thank you.
Try the all-new Diet Water, 0 calories. Now in every store near you. Diet Water.
Hello, Cassius, and welcome to 51st News interview. So today I'd like to interview you about your role in the Orcs mod and modding. How are you doing today?
I'm doing quite fine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. So I'm just going to ask you a couple questions and then we can get on with our day.
All right.
So the first one is, how long have you been making mods for Arma 3? And how long have you been working on the 51st Orcs mod specifically?
Oh, so my career with Orcs modding actually started with the 51st. When did I join the unit? Essentially is the question. 2023 in November. I started working on the Ox mod essentially, or December. I made the first version that we would remember today. Me and Raven made it together, and then I came back last December or November or something, and I rewrote the entire mod from scratch again. And that's currently what we're using right now.
So September of this year, yes.
No, November of this year.
And was that completely alone? Did you have Revan to help you or anything?
I mean, the remake I made essentially alone. The textures I didn't make, but I made all the code and all related stuff to that.
So do you want to tell us a bit more about this this remake? What's different from the previous version, and why it was remade in the first place?
That's not which why it got remade, right? So it got remade because the old version essentially didn't really fit anymore. We used a really old method where every single subgroup or category would be its own add-on. It's really hard to explain all this without being too technical. Basically, the old mod used outdated methods that aren't good for Arma. They cost extra lag and they cost extra resources to be used. They don't really fit. So we said, okay, we need to build out of that and change to something else. The other reason, the primary reason, was probably because we're going to move to IDA. We used to use Legion Studios armors, but now we're using IDA armors. So we needed a new ground, a new base to make that transition very smooth. You asked for the main difference between the two mods, right?
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
Yeah, so the new mod is built on something called Hemmet. Hemmet, it's not a transport truck. It's an item framework system. Basically, formats all our data in a much smoother way. It allows us to make the mod way more easier. It allows testing to be done easier. It also introduces CBA. I think everyone knows what CBA like. They know the CBA mod, but they don't know what it is. CBA is literally just a bunch of pre-written code. I can use code from CBA to make my code better because they have a bunch of prefixes and I don't know how to explain it. But basically, it makes life easier for us.
Okay, so
we use.
Sorry, Karen.
Yeah, we use macros essentially. Like a macro is it takes my code to make a helmet, and then the only thing I have to put in to make a new custom helmet, for example, is just the macro prefix, and then the variable I'm assigned to it. So it's just helmet. It's just a custom helmet sign, and then the name of the person having a custom helmet, and everything else is just done automatically.
Wow, that sounds quite impressive. So you're saying before this, you didn't just have to type in the name of whoever's helmet or whatever it is you're adding, but there was a bunch more to it. So this has saved you so much time then. Would you also say organization's better, or is it roughly the same?
I mean, instead of having all the customs before this update was spread out on 40 different documents, I suppose you can say, or just 40 different files. It was around maybe 4,000 lines of code that was written out. I mean, it's still that amount of code per se, technically speaking, but what visually we see is way less, maybe 16. So it allows us the overview and to see what's happening is way easier, and that's the point of this update.
That sounds pretty impressive. So did it take you a long time to figure out Hemmet and implement it?
It took me 2 weeks to do it, but
weeks.
Also on off because I'm still in the military, so I don't have a lot of spare time.
Fair enough. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So can you tell me a bit about what it's been like switching to IDA? Why did we choose IDA in your eyes? And what's it been like working with IDA, specifically more in terms of coding?
I mean, I love IDA and the stuff they do things. I mean, we switched probably because it looks a lot better. Here, I can let me quickly find an example. This is going to be this one, I think. Can probably edit this stuff out or something. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's get an IDA one as well. I'm not sure what to call it here. Clone Army. I mean, the left is 3G Studios and the right is IDA. They look quite different, and especially when textured, IDA one looks way better. Like here's the 51st one.
Yeah, I definitely saw a massive improvement when we switched. No shade to LS or whoever before, but certainly the quality of IDA cannot be denied.
I mean, 3G Studios is great. It's just that the model to the left is almost like 6 or 7 years old at this point. Like that's what I started using when I got into Starsim almost 7 years ago. IDA is a lot more recent, but it's also not the finished product. They're currently working. Well, they're just saying they're working on a second version of the IDA armor.
Well, so they intend to make it even better.
Yes, they just released it early because so many people wanted it.
Well, okay, so sounds like we need to do an interview with IDA then. But enough of that then. Thank you for showing us that. So what are you working on with the Orcs mod currently? Like, what are your plans?
Yeah, very recently, we released something called the Auxiliary Mod Roadmap. It's like a normal game roadmap. It just details exactly what we're going to be working on, so all the players know. Basically, Q1 is the weapons overhaul. We're going to rework most of the weapon systems, like the infantry weapons and stuff, to basically the point of the update is to make the heavy gunner better at his job while making it worse at like sniping people. Because the point of all the weapon systems and like the quals are to operate at their specific area of interest. Because you don't want a marksman being able to act as a machine gunner, right? You don't want a machine gunner being able to act as a marksman. You don't want the AT gunner being able to wipe out entire squads of infantry with a single shot, right? That's not the point of the AT gunner. The point is that each role supports the squad or the team, and then the team together can take out these larger pools of infantry or whatever they're facing. Basically, it's to simplify teamwork before single riflemen being gods.
Yeah, so you guys are taking that very seriously, I presume.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other plans for the Orcs mod, or is it simply Q1? I'm assuming that means the first quarter of this year.
I mean, traditionally it would mean that, but I literally just named it that because I didn't know what to name it. We call it stage as well.
Fair one.
Q1 and Q2 are already being worked on. I've also started work on Q4 and Q3 as well. Like, all of it's in the background. All of the stuff is there. It just needs to be formatted together. Pretty much made it to showcase, like, to tell the Ox team itself, like, hey, this is what we're going to be working on right now. This is what the focus needs to be.
Yeah, completely fair. So, can you tell me a bit more about the Orcs team and how it operates?
Currently, the Ox team is split into two parts. I'm not gonna say too much about it because I don't want to promise anything. But I'm looking into expanding those two roles, so there's only not configures and textures or developers and whatever you want to call it. But the coding part is led by myself, and then I have written down. I have 4 members, but essentially it's only Frost working on it right now. Everyone else busy. I am looking to expand, and I will be posting announcements like, "Hey, you want to join?" And we're gonna be giving out rewards for people contributing as well. For the texture side, that's Kakapa leading it. He literally just came back today as well from a longer LOA. And then you got Frost doing a lot of textures with a lot of other people helping as well.
Well, okay. That's pretty good, yeah. So you've got a lot of people, but you say a lot of the talent is concentrated within just like a handful.
Yeah, I mean, the code itself is like mostly written by myself. Frost is contributing a lot. We had more people helping, but I mean, it's only Frost and myself. Well, Frost does most of the custom stuff and like adding vehicles and stuff like that.
Fair one. So you're very busy people then.
I mean, comparable to I don't know how to define it as busy. I wouldn't define it as very busy, but rather that we're the only ones working on it, which is unfortunate.
I see. So do you have a message to the unit? Anyone, like anything you want to say to people?
Well, yeah, reach out, ask to become part of the team. Because we're literally just needing more people. We need more manpower to work on these things. The only requirements are essentially that you're able to understand and read and follow instructions, and preferably have a basic concept of how code and config works. Because I can teach it a lot, but if you don't understand that part, it's gonna be really difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of that, right now I am updating the aux mod.
Well, as we speak.
Yeah, I'm adding more vehicles.
Wow. Okay.
Frosted, but got updated.
So not only did you create people out of thin air, but you're also editing the world code as we sit in it.
Yes, technically anyone will have problems connecting to the server now. I mean, not really because Arma works, but they should have if Arma was a good game.
Well, those aviator glasses must give you incredible power.
Exactly.
Well, okay.
They're actually a custom item made just for myself.
So, obviously, you're working on Q1 right now.
Yes.
But we've seen the introduction of things like weapons crates and different weapons already this year, as well as some pretty big changes. So, what has worked well with that? What has not worked so well with that? And what do you plan on changing about it for the Q1 update, besides the heavy focus?
Well, a lot of issues with backpack space and stuff, and storage capacities. Most of the issues have been people trying to bring way too much stuff they shouldn't have brought. Despite it wasn't the gear guide, but come on, be realistic. A single infantryman should not be able to be in a fight for a constant fighting for an hour without having to resupply. That's just not realistic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the problem is that a lot of empathizing on the unit is done on single infantry base, single infantryman focus, while it should be on squad or platoon element sizes. Because what I think when I make the argument is okay, I have a squad. They're going to consist of every single role, most likely. Probably 2 of these roles, 2 heavies. That's what I would bring. And I heard to base it off my own experience with using you guys and playing in the unit and playing in a lot of other units. I did also ask for feedback on most points, and I do get feedback on most points. So
yeah,
but it's mainly that, to be honest.
Okay. It's pretty insightful. So, coming from a squad leader's perspective, are you trying to say that you're going to give us less ammo, potentially, and overall just balance us more in line with what the battlefield would actually look like? Or is this something different that you are trying to work on?
I mean, my push is very inclined upon that every single element should be used, which means that, okay, we have pilots. What do? They do CAS, they do resupply missions, right? If the infantry has essentially infinite ammo on the ground, then they are useless to 50%. They can only do CAS missions, but they don't need to do it because the infantry can just kill everything they see in a second. So what's the point of them? They don't have a point, they shouldn't exist, they don't need to be here. Remove them. Which we don't want to do. We want pilots, right? So then the only other option is to, hey, let's nerf the infantry to the point where they need pilots in larger scale combat to survive and be able to do their job successfully. Basically making them reliant upon the other elements within the unit. Because from my perspective, you're not fighting as a squad, you're not fighting as a platoon, you're fighting as a division. Or no, sorry, company, that's what we're called.
Yeah, so basically you're saying in order to have a better gameplay experience and make things just run smoother overall, we need to take away that function that us as infantry, especially, are able to just cut through enemies without any ulterior support. So we need to work together with those other elements to gain that edge, to then complete our objectives efficiently.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that sounds pretty cool, and we'll definitely be looking forward to that on the ground. I can't speak for everyone, but it does sound promising. So I know we've gone over challenges briefly, particularly when it comes to the coding side, that there's not a lot of people that put in the time to assist. What would you say some of the other challenges you face as an orcs team are?
Probably other mods that we rely upon. For example, IDA did an update recently, which meant I had to. I think it was one day before moving out into the field again. I had to sit there and rewrite every single thing, mostly. So I mean, it's a lot of that stuff. When other mods don't really say what they're doing, and we rely a lot upon them, which brings me to the point that we're gonna try to become less self-reliant, not what's it called, the opposite of that. We're gonna be less dependent on other mods, because it's just not how it doesn't work that well.
Okay, what does that mean, not relying on other mods?
I mean, for example, we're gonna hopefully slowly be porting models and how do you explain this? Right now, when you use the armor, right? I'm gonna spawn a dude for show very clearly. So this guy right here, the trooper, you can see him in the shoot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy and these guys are exactly the same, essentially. The only difference that I've added a texture to this guy and I've added a different weapon to this guy. That's basically the difference. But it's literally a copy. This is a copy of the IDA clone.
Yeah.
What you can do instead, to be less reliant on IDA, is to make this guy from scratch. So you make him from. Let me find the right guy. You make him from. I don't know. The fucking auto rifleman from the base game. You make him like this instead, and then you just take the models and the textures and apply them to the clone trooper. But right now it looks something like this. IDA takes from the NATO guy, and we take from the IDA guy, which means that if they change their sides, we get update our stuff.
Okay, and that's obviously not ideal for a unit like ours because we plan on sticking around. So say IDA has some kind of fallout and they remove maybe the helmet, then we're helmetless, then we've got to change our whole mod to perhaps LS again.
Yeah, and if we do it this way instead, by not having that guy in the middle, let's say the model we're grabbing from IDA gets removed, we can just essentially very easily switch it to like LS again. Because we're enhancing specific models, not the entire units or classes.
So it's a lot like, so say we use IDA, it's a lot like building with Legos, but this way it's going to be a lot more like we make the Legos ourselves in-house. So yeah, that sounds pretty cool. How do you plan on doing that? Do you plan on hiring talent, or are you training your guys up to do that?
I was planning to do it all by myself. Spend like 16 hours straight just sitting and working on it.
Wow. Okay.
That's how we do most things in the Ox mod. Well, that's how I do things in the Ox mod. I sit down, I do it, and it's done.
Holy crap. Okay. Those aviators really are shining.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. And do you want anyone to come and help you with that? Like perhaps learn modeling or something? Someone watching this perhaps?
I mean, modeling, yeah. Speaking of modeling, I mean, those per se, the units, like what we wear, wouldn't usually be made by ourselves because that's like, it takes a lot of time and effort, and I don't think the results would be good enough at this point to justify doing that.
Yeah.
But obviously that would be cool, like having essentially our own mod. But also competing with other Star Wars mods doesn't really make sense. There's so many of them. There's so many different ways to do it, and I don't think that really adds anything to the units. What I would like to do is have custom weapons. Completely custom weapons.
How come custom weapons specifically?
because weapons are a really big deal of what we do, right? And if because right now we don't have full control over them. Like we don't control what's happening with them at all.
Yeah.
What I would keep is the IDA. Like how do you, okay? So weapons and armor 3 are built with three things: the weapon itself, the magazine, and the ammo. The weapons don't define that much. They're model, they're muzzle flash, they're like the fire mode you use, but not more than that essentially. The magazines define the count and stuff like that. For the ammo is the interesting part, right? What you actually shoot. You define how long they live, what they will hit, how they sound, all of that stuff essentially. So I would like to keep the IDA ammo because they look really fucking good and really cool, while making our own weapons and magazines. The same way you can do that is just essentially taking the IDA weapon model and then attaching our own stuff, like our own custom code to that, to make it work. That way we can switch it out if we want to, and potentially in the future make our own models and add it. The first weapon that can happen with, and it's going to happen quite recently, quite soon actually, it's the correct wording in English, is the T7 Eye Disruptor. I'm going to remake that completely from scratch, essentially. There's a model I found on Sketchfab that is free to use under Creative Commons, so we can put it into Arma and make it our own.
Hell yeah, that's pretty badass. So,
yeah.
Sorry, Carol.
Yeah, that was done.
Okay. So we can expect a complete overhaul of our weapons in the next year.
Yeah, essentially. Provided unit sales is active and we have enough support behind the money team to do it.
Wow, okay. Yeah, that's very cool. That's exciting stuff right there. And we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that here at 51st News. Well, Cassius, just on to the last couple questions and then we can leave. I want to hear, what are your plans going forward? Not with the Orcs team per se, and not in your personal life, but your plans within Starsim and within the unit.
Sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yeah, so outside of the Orcs team and outside of your personal life, what are your plans going forward? What can you see yourself doing in the near future to the distant future?
All right, so to answer that question, I will answer a bit personal question about myself, technically speaking. I'm in the military. That's going to be done soon. Then I'm having summer break, and then after that, I'm going to either be working or starting school, which means that I have a lot more free time on my hand compared to right now. And with that, I'm probably going to stop being a dedicated Zeus and join back into the infantry.
Okay.
Probably, I'm not sure what's ahead for position, but probably some kind of mid leadership position.
Mid leadership. So we're speaking like sergeant, sergeant major.
Yeah, something like that.
And that's what you'd like to do, yeah?
Preferably, yeah.
Yeah.
I like being in the thick of it in combat and calling out directives and stuff.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense, to be honest. You can't just sit and watch people have the fun all the time. So does this mean that you'll stop Zeusing, or are you just going to stop being a dedicated Zeus?
I don't know. Blaze hasn't given me any tier to Zeusing, but I think I'm a tier 3 Zeus. I don't know.
I'd imagine so.
Yeah, but I'll be Zeusing still. But I don't really Zeus that much right now, anyways. So, well, I will be Zeusing a main op on Sunday. So, but yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Best of luck with everything. And it's been such a good time talking to you here, and I'm sure everyone listening has really valued your input.
I hope so.
I hope so too, because it has been quite insightful, especially into the inner workings of the Orcs team. Because obviously people, they don't always understand what it is they're using, how much work goes into it. But hey, if you guys are interested, just hit up Cassius and he'll show you around. Just keep in mind, these are people behind the Orcs team, and every team there is, so just treat them with a bit of dignity and just be polite. They're not trying to be assholes to be assholes. They're just telling you how things are, usually. Yeah, Cassius, it's been great. Sorry, go on.
One last thing. I have the recent change of mindset that everyone is trying to do the best they can all the time, with the interest of, like, we have the same interests because we want to make the unit better, more fun to play, and the gameplay better. I think that everyone has that interest. So when they say like, if they say like against me, they don't want to change something in the Ox mode because of X, Y, Z. I'm just gonna have the mindset they're doing this because they want the best gameplay possible. That's my mindset,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Unless proven otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Like, everyone has their own opinions and their own ways of doing things. So when it comes to changes, especially big changes, there needs to be a healthy debate about it. Otherwise, it just doesn't go in anyone's favor, and bad blood arises, and that's not productive. And that's not the future we want here. We're all friends. Okay. Any last words to anyone? And no, I'm not going to shoot you.
Are you gonna shoot me? I'm not
No,
in the game anymore.
I couldn't shoot you. Your glasses are too shiny. But yeah, anything you want to say
This
to
isn't
anyone?
even you. You're an AI here.
I'm an AI.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I have nothing more to say.
Okay.
Whoa, there's two of them.
It's like the Truman Show. Anyway, thank you guys for watching 51st News. It's been great. Hope to see you in the next one. Cassius, put me out of my misery.
Right. Give me 1 second.
Wait, what?
That's a nuke.